I'd like to bring the meeting to order for regular meeting 6:38. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we have one public comment, and that is from Mike Nash. If you could just go up to the podium, and there's a
Already?
I know. First one up.
Thank you. My name is Mike Nash. I'm from Sago. I'm mainly...
One sec, Mike. Sorry about that.
Something's wrong here.
Yeah, just a little bit of feedback.
Horribly, man.
Shut your mouth.
Yeah.
I think it's his.
It's me when I get around computers and things.
Yeah, just a little fuzz.
Wow.
That's amazing, Matt.
Okay, you can begin again. Go ahead.
My name is Mike Nash, and I'm from Sago, and thank you for giving me a couple of minutes. I mainly am not here to speak to the school board, but to the audience. I've been to various board meetings and listened to different people talk about the education system and the problems in the school system and everything else. And over the last couple of years, I've been talking to a lot of different organizations, businesses, pastors, ministers, teachers, and teachers from literally California to Virginia. And I believe that the complaints and the problems with our school system are misdirected. I don't necessarily think, I mean, there's problems with the school system, granted, with everyone you're going to have a problem. But I think a lot of the problem is misdirected. I don't think it's the school system. I think it's the parents. It's us, the way we're raising the kids. I'm kind of going over a cheat sheet here, but anyway, for 2 years in talking with these various people and everything, I'm finding that, especially with the businesses, people that come in and apply for a job, they're not capable of doing the work. And it's not the education, it's the attitude. There's no work ethic. They have no concern about being on time. They have no loyalty to an employer. They have an entitlement feeling, and it's the job of the parents to make their kids able to get out and get a job. It's not the school. The school is to teach them, to give them the tools, but the attitudes and everything else come from the parents, and it's not a teacher's responsibility to teach the students these things. I've gotten this frustration from the businesses. I've got down here in capital letters, all. I have spoke to a lot of businesses, and there's not been a single business, not one, that has told me that they haven't had a problem finding a qualified employee. And again, I'm stressing qualified is not by the education standard, but by their attitudes. What we have today is parents that don't raise their children. They have the children and they send them off to school, and they think it's the school's responsibility to raise the children. They believe it's their job to be a friend or a best pal or something with their kids, and that's not raising children. One of the, again, talking about when a lot of people complain about the school system, one of the things they talk about is the homeschooling, and they stress how well kids in the homeschool systems are doing. And I know a lot of kids in the homeschool system, and they are doing well. But I feel this, again, kind of proves what I'm wanting to say. Kids that are in homeschooled are constantly being overseen or worked with their parents. And so the parents that are more involved with their students, again, the students are going to do better. Something else I wanted to mention in reference to the local systems. There are things that come out of high school that I'm running into a lot of people that they have no concept of what is available at the school. I've been speaking with Alex Gray, and I asked him about being able to use his name. He said that was fine. There's a career and technical program that goes on through this high school. Besides all the college prep work and everything else, there's tremendous vocational opportunities for these kids, and people are unaware of them. And again, parents not being involved with the school and finding out what's there. I've talked to teachers that said they send things home to school, from school to the parents. No contact, no anything. They have parent-teachers meetings. Very few parents show up, and the parents that do show up are the parents of the kids that are receiving the good grades. It's the other parents that the teachers need to talk with. It's the other parents that they need to be in contact with. I've talked to some of the students from the high school here, and they're incredible. There's some of these kids, I've got people that I know that have PhDs, and I have talked to a few students from this high school that can talk more maturely and with a wider range of knowledge than people I've spoke with who have PhDs. And these are high school students. One of them is a junior. The thing about the school again and the parents is, and the teacher's responsibility, there's an old saying about you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. The teachers are bringing the kids in, they can't make them learn. If they don't have the backing of the parents, nothing is going to get done.
So about 3 minutes is up. So
Okay, in the process of that, I was hoping to ask people if anybody can give me any ideas on what I can do or what we can do as a community to bolster parent involvement. I would appreciate it. And with that, I will sign out. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nash. There's no one else for public comment, so with that, I'll move on to our consent agenda. Entertain a motion to approve consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one opposed. Motion passes. So we have from Matt Brass, approval to go to bid for wireless equipment. You're already up.
Dropped off one of these for each person. Okay, currently at our schools, all of the elementary schools, the middle school, the wireless equipment is owned by the school district and it's run by the technology department. We have Cisco Meraki's in place and we can control those remotely. So if there's something wrong in a classroom, most of the time we can boot in, we can see that it's stuck, we can reboot it, we can check and see all of the analytics and what's going on with the wireless equipment. The high school is currently under contract, it's through the State Department of Education wireless program. And that, there's two ways that could go. And the technology director years ago made the decision that they were going to opt in for contract. And so ENA runs that through the state. The equipment that's in the school is owned by ENA. And the state pays a yearly fee to them to run that. The technology department, we're interested in going out for bid to see what it would cost for us to get the wireless equipment put into the schools that we would own and we would be able to manage, and all the equipment would be the same district-wide. We have Cisco Meraki's that we manage, their Aero Hive that ENA has in the schools, and their older devices as well. It also, I think, gives us a better opportunity to answer help desk tickets and issues that arise faster. When it comes to us, then we have to go to ENA, and there's usually a multi-day lag for them to get on it, and if there's a physical problem, they have to send somebody out to deal with it, and that usually takes a while. There's some dead spots in the high school that we definitely think that we could address if we did it ourselves. If we opt out of the state's contract, there is up to $21 per student at the high school level that they pay to us to set this up and do it ourselves. And so what I put together in the spreadsheet was to show what it would cost per school roughly. And this is based on, we just got done this summer running through an upgrade of most of the elementary schools. There were 3 elementary schools that were done the previous year, and then we finished upgrading those 3 and upgraded all the rest and the middle school this summer and put in new equipment. Based on those prices, it would be roughly, just under $17,000 for Clark Fork, around $71,500 for Sandpoint High, and then LPO about $18,000. That runs to $106,000, and we would run this through the E-rate program. The E-rate program would cover 80% of the cost because that's where we sit with our free and reduced lunch, where our percentage sits on category 2. So that would take $85,000 off the cost. If you then add the 1,195 students we currently have with the $21 per pupil that we would get from the state for opting out, that's $25,000, and we would actually have a little extra money for overages, for network racks, for public for cable. There's always the overages that come with projects. So we would actually have overage, and I have already set aside some money in next year's budget just in case we needed extra. So it's already covered from that. So really what I need is just permission from the board to go out to get requests for pricing, and it will go in a 470 with funds for learning. It doesn't commit us to anything. When the prices come back and we plan on moving forward with the project, then I'd come before the board and ask for final permission to do that.
So you'd be going out for bid, hoping that the costs come in somewhere around that equipment install estimate that you came up with through all this work, so.
Yeah.
In talking to your vendors, are you fairly confident that the pricing for this equipment has remained steady?
Yeah, because the pricing that we got was
Just
from
this
about a year and a
summer.
half ago for the previous, but we went through and did cost comparisons and upgraded the equipment just this summer for the current install, and those prices were roughly the same. So even if there's a slight increase, even a 3 to 5% increase, that 80% is taken off of the total.
Oh, right,
And
right.
then
So
we get
we're
the,
gonna have
Better.
better service,
Yeah.
say no dead spots.
yes.
Internal control.
Yeah, internal
control.
And we own the
And-
equipment, so if for some reason the state decided to stop the wireless program, we would have to figure out a way to come up with a yearly cost to pay ENA, as opposed to owning the equipment and having it ourselves and just going on to a multi-year improvement where every so many years we take.
You're saying if the state backed out of the $21 reimbursement per student
So
in future?
the question, the $21, is that, do we get that for every student every year, or is that just?
It's just for high schoolers.
Just for high schoolers?
Just for the high schoolers, yeah.
But we get that for every student every year from the state for,
Right now, yeah. And that's been going, I honestly don't know how long it's been going, I think for about 5 years.
Okay.
I just like to say I support this, it seems
Yeah.
like a very,
there
very
any
good
other-
proposal to me.
I have one question. I'm assuming on the stuff that we don't own, and we're under contract with a third party to administer support, is there the potential that now we own the equipment, we're gonna have essentially the same cost because we're gonna have to hire somebody to handle any servicing of the equipment because now it's ours?
No, what we do at the elementary schools, because we already own the equipment at the
Right.
elementary schools and we run the same program.
Yep.
If, I can say in the time that I've been here, in 16 months I've been here, we've had one switch that's gone out and we have a replacement in the warehouse for it.
Okay.
They're probably under, I think, a 3-year warranty.
Yeah, okay.
The only real extended cost on these is that to manage them remotely, there's a yearly licensing cost which is built into the cost here.
Programming.
So you'll be able to service these with no additional staff?
Yeah, we have a network administrator on, and we have a contract through a company called Ednetics in Coeur d'Alene that's there to help us if we run into something, bump into something we don't know. We can call them, and they're kind of our first line of support if we need help with something.
So I'll entertain a motion if we're comfortable with Matt's proposal.
I move that we accept Matt's proposal, allow him to go out and solicit bids for this equipment.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Motion passes, and thank you, Matt. So Sean, I'll turn it over to you for strategic plan process. You have some information for us.
I do. So time flies, because this summer when I was thinking about a strategic planning process, I thought, oh, we have plenty of time, right? And here we are. So this past summer, I did a lot of thinking about what kind of a process could we use to develop a long-range plan for our school district. And I spent a lot of time thinking back in the last 25 years of different processes that I've been involved in, some really, really very successful for long-range planning purposes, and some not so successful. And I spent a lot of time reading, looking at what other school districts have done, different systems have done with a high degree of success. And this process that I would like for us to go through, I think takes the best of everything that I've seen in my career and in my research as well. So the goal for us would be to have a strategic plan, a long-range plan that would help us make really good decisions when it comes to our resources over the next 5 years. And also helps us identify 5 or 6 priorities for our school district that are some of the most important levers that can be integrated and incorporated into all of our district activities to drive improved student learning, because that's what it all boils down to. So what I'll do, excuse me, is go over the key elements, and you can stop me at any time if you'd like, as far as the process that I'd like for us to embark on. The first part would be just simply to form a steering committee. Much of what I'm presenting tonight actually I've stolen from a group called the District Management Council. I've seen almost all of the things I'm going to present to you tonight except for one piece. I'll let you know when I get to that. But it's very common to have a steering committee when you're developing a long-range plan. The recommendation was to have a group size of about 10 to 12 members, large enough to have a good representation, but small enough that it would be logistically possible to have everybody at every meeting, which is very important. Because full engagement by every member would be essential to the process. The committee, this particular committee, would be made up primarily of those that have the responsibility of carrying out the plan. So largely comprised of staff members. The recommendation was to have one board member. I have asked Geraldine if she would serve as board chair and in her role, and I'm pretty sure it was an enthusiastic yes. So we'll see if the enthusiasm stays at that level as we move along. Okay. To form a steering committee, and that would be done by October 15th. Would include such people as association president, secondary teacher representation, elementary teacher, building principal, district level administration, myself, a couple of parents, and that's pretty much the makeup of that group. I'll describe a little bit about what that group would be responsible for. The next step, it would be between October 15th and January 15th, would be to conduct a needs assessment. And that is just, I've seen a lot of processes start in my career that people moved forward without having a really clear understanding of the current reality. So it's very important that we go through this process where we can gather not only quantitative information, which would be hard data, but also qualitative kind of information, and I'll explain that in a few seconds here. But it's really important for us to have a common fact base that's grounded in really good research and analysis, so that we have a great springboard for our planning process. The quantitative information would include, of course, academic achievement data, financial data, as well as operational performance, and we'd be looking at multi-year trends, compare ourselves to like districts in the state as well as nationally where appropriate. The other piece would be getting qualitative input, and this is all of these stages are equally important, but this is of critical importance, of course, would be to get input from our stakeholders. This is where we would be conducting interviews, convening focus groups of stakeholders, and the goal, of course, would be that we could have multiple perspectives and insights from the very beginning, and would front load the process with that. We would be asking questions such as, what is working well? What challenges require district attention, and what initiatives should the district be investing in? I'm envisioning a series of public meetings open to anyone, but also we would invite people, because I've just, in my experience, you have meetings open to anyone, they're usually very, very poorly attended, and you don't always get a broad representation of stakeholders. So we would be intentionally inviting, but also welcoming anyone to these, and we want to have a lot of people at these meetings. Geraldine and I met with Paul Kush, is that how you say his name?
Paul Kush.
Cushy, okay, even better. Paul's a great guy, and he's the Economic Development, Executive Director of the Economic Development,
Monterey,
EDC.
let's see, what is
EDC.
it? EDC.
Bonner County.
Economic Development Board.
There we go. And they have kind of a summit every year, and it happens. The focus happens to be on education. Didn't he say well over 100 people would be there? Business owners, business leaders, et cetera. That would. The nice thing is, we asked if we could actually run through this process for the first time on November 2nd with that particular group. So that would be our first opportunity to engage with stakeholders as far as these key questions. Not only would we have public meetings and get this qualitative input, again, between October 15th and January 15th, but we'd also conduct a survey. The last time we did a broad scale survey on strategic planning, overall strategic planning, was 2014, and we had close to 1,000 respondents. It was fantastic, and we developed themes through that input, and that drove a lot of really good work since 2014. So we would do that again because we know we get good feedback and a lot of participation, so we would do both. And finally, we would also, as a part of the needs assessment, we would be doing something called a root cause analysis. So we would be taking a look at all of this input that we're receiving, and usually the input they're actually just symptoms of a greater issue. We want to figure out, okay, what are some of the underlying causes that we have identified that can be addressed, so we can establish our priority areas moving forward. And we're doing some of that right now, Andrew and I, with our principals when it comes to school improvement planning and those kinds of things, of which you'll hear a bit about here in a few weeks. So once we have done the needs assessment and we've gotten a lot of qualitative and quantitative information, the steering committee would take that information and begin some very serious work around, okay, what is this telling us? We have all of this input, and we would be identifying, okay, based on this, what should our strategic priorities be moving forward based on what we've heard and what we know about our data and otherwise, and we would identify some measurable goals. I'll give you an example of one, a strategic priority of another district, just so you kind of know what I'm talking about here. One district had, we will focus on early assessment and intervention at the pre-K through third grade levels to ensure early academic success. That particular school district did that because they wanted high levels of learning for all of their students to be exited to be college and career ready, and we know that if students aren't ready by third or fourth grade or reading, good luck figuring out the school thing after that. So this district, a high priority area was that particular area, and an example of a measurable goal for that might be, and this again, the steering committee would identify these things. An example would be by 2023, 90% of our K-3 students will be at level 3 as measured by the IRI. It's a state assessment. That would just be an example. Currently, about 76% of our students are reading at grade level, and when you combine all those students. So that's just an example. So our steering committee would be coming up with, okay, we've got all this input. We're developing 4 to 6 priorities with measurable goals that we could set. Then, this is a part that I've never seen before, which I think is excellent. You take that draft plan, typically school districts, you go straight to the school board and get the school board to approve. This, we'd circle back to those stakeholders, we'd find out, okay, who attended, we'd get everybody's email addresses, and even if you didn't attend the first time, we'd have similar public meetings and say, all right, this is what we heard from you all. Now, this is what we think you said, and these are our priorities based on the input that we received from you all and our data that we have. From there, you're basically allowing for reaction and feedback. What do you think? And the idea would be to make some changes. I'm sure that is what will happen during that time. And that will create better, first of all, when people see that we're making changes based on what we're hearing, people feel empowered and they want to be involved. And oh wow, we're making a difference here. And we want to create more of that in our community for sure. And it will just be a better product for us moving forward. Once we've done that, then we'd go to the school board for approval and adoption in April, either April 10th or April 24th. And of course, at that time, board members would be giving that's another lens that would be on the plan. Once that happens, the next step would be, okay, now we've got these strategic priorities and we also have these goals, but the real work then needs to be developed. Okay, how are we going to get there? Then the strategic planning committee gets back together, the steering committee, and we'll broaden that group out to even more of the people that are doing the actual work, our principals, our administrators, our teachers, and get further input on okay, what are some of the initiatives that we would want to embark on? What are some of our action steps? An example of an initiative might be this, following that priority and that goal that I had used as an example. An initiative might be by June of 2019, the district will have will double the number of after-school programs we have directly tied to early literacy, or it could even be something around full-day kindergarten, or it could be multiple things. And then what would the action steps be to ensure that we get there? So that work would be done between, really this is honestly a little bit overly ambitious. I think it would, I had initially April 25th to June 1st. It's probably more like April 25th to June 30th.
It's a 5-year plan. It's for 5 years implemented.
Exactly. It is. And then equally important would be moving forward, we would be managing, we'd have checks and balances in place and be reporting on progress, implementation, and so on and so forth to the board. I've seen school districts that literally have it monthly, once a month. That might be overkill. To say, all right, where are we at? How are we doing? What are our checks and balances at a minimum though of twice a year? You know, and I've seen everything in between, and that's something that we could decide, you know, moving forward when we get to that step. And then generally that's the process that we would begin immediately. So yeah, I would love to have your thoughts on what I've shared.
I think it's a great plan. I have a question. Assuming, you know, the entire process goes through on the schedule that you propose, and if by June 30th of 2018, you know, we have our priorities and our goals, does that give, you know, you and your team time, you know, to get the staff, to get the curriculum, to get the technology necessary, you know, to implement these plans in the fall of 2018?
Well, thank goodness. Realistically, from a resource standpoint, there probably wouldn't be anything radically different coming in next fall or spring through our budgeting process, but it would absolutely help us when we're planning for our levy in the fall. So a lot of
Fall of 2018.
Exactly.
When we're planning.
Yeah, since it's a 5-year plan, at least it would help us identify, all right, what should our priorities be when we're setting our levy amount in the fall for the following year.
Right.
Since next year we'll be in the second year of our 2-year levy, there's really nothing radically that would change from a revenue standpoint.
Right.
So
you're anticipating there's going to be some costs associated with some of these
There could be.
points?
Yeah.
Okay.
for sure.
All the curriculum things you mentioned, all of that is potential.
Yes, and some of it will be, you know, which we're doing right now is we're simply changing our behaviors and our priorities and what our focus areas are. And there's a lot of low cost things for sure, or no cost things But there's also things that, of course, will require more revenue, either from grants or from local support, or a number of other things, I suppose. I do believe, though, that if we do this correctly and we involve enough people and get people to understand and get behind and some energy and synergy around the school district and how it's tied in with our community, that if we were to increase a levy amount because of this, there would be far more buy-in and support to do so. We came up here last spring knowing fully well that this year would be difficult from a resource standpoint when it comes to teaching and learning because of the position that we're in. And what I'm very pleased about is, again, I'll go back to the behaviors that have, the thing, our leadership that has changed at the principal level, our teacher leadership level, and so on and so forth, that requires some, does not require a lot of capital, if you will. Right. But we're getting to the point where now we're starting to uncover and identify some things that, just with full disclosure, that it just costs money.
Could, yeah.
Yeah, I mean.
Could. As I understand it, you don't necessarily need a motion for approval at this time. You're just rolling out this process and opening it for questions. And I think I agree with Gary. It sounds well thought out, backed up with a lot of good research on your part. And I'm excited to be a part of it.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? Well, I'm sure questions may come up as we go through this process. So
For sure, yeah.
we'll move on the agenda, and I'll invite don't even have the mic on. Melanie, you can come up to present second reading of policies. Melanie Almeida.
So the second reading, there are no changes after our discussion for the first reading of the last time you saw me. I will point out that in the board packet that was presented to you earliest last week, there was an error in draft policy 5810, which was forwarded to you in a separate email and will be part of the when that gets approved.
Did anybody have any further comments or anything on these second readings of these? Right. Kelly, I meant to ask you in advance, can we approve it as a second reading as a group?
If you just read the numbers
Right.
as a group.
I think we need to do a separate one for the first one and the last one. Because one of them is deletion.
To delete.
The other one's a new.
Yeah. Great. Okay, I'll entertain a motion on the second reading of these policies.
I move that we accept 604.5
To be
So
deleted.
scheduled, that
To
we
be
accept the
deleted.
deletion of that item as proposed.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. None opposed, so that passes. We have modifying policies for the next.
Yeah. I move that we accept the revised policies 5217, 5440, 5450, and 5705 as revised.
I second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
None opposed, motion passes. There's one last policy that's new. If you could give us a motion on 5810.
Okay, I move that we accept the new policy 5810, covering extra hours and overtime for classified employees.
I second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oh, no. Motion passes. Thank you, Melanie. That was easy. That's the last of our formal part of the agenda, but let's see. Casey, do you have any principal announcements?
We really don't. I mean, everything's rolling pretty well, and pretty well. I wouldn't say it's all been smooth, but it's been pretty smooth so far. But as good as you can, hope for and expect. So, doing some good things, which I think is exciting.
Good.
So, yes, thank you for looking at me. I think that means I should can jump on it. So I wanted to say thank you to Andra Murray. When we came to you all last, I guess it was in the summer, and asked for an additional staff development day, and the focus was on mathematics at the elementary level. I have something I'll share with you on Friday as far as a little bit more detail around what happened on that extra day, but Amanda did a really great job of leading that with Kathy Premer, our math instructional coach, and a handful of just phenomenal teacher leaders. Our teacher leaders actually were the trainers, if you will, for our teachers, and they did a fantastic job. And just another example, we have so much expertise within. That was pretty much close to a no-cost item, right? And,
Right.
So an example, again, doing things differently with hopes of getting more students learning more, right? So Andrew did a survey, or conducted a survey, or worked with Kathy to do that, of our teachers who were taking part in it, and basically asked questions. Well, what was your knowledge about this particular practice before today? What is your knowledge base, and how comfortable are you with this after today? And the pre and post data was phenomenal. A lot of great learning and a lot of wonderful comments from that. So it was time well spent, and I can guarantee you, based on what I had seen, that better practice was happening starting Monday in our classrooms because of what happened on Thursday during the training. That's the idea. It was just phenomenal. So thank you for your support in allowing us to have that additional day as well.
And I appreciate it when you forward emails like you did, of just kind of a follow-up on how that math went, because it helps us kind of stay in touch with.
Yes, okay, yeah, I'll keep doing that for sure.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm wondering, okay, am I inundating their inbox? But I'll keep doing it.
And then I just had two, since Tom's not here for Sandpoint High School. I know tomorrow's a fun day for the senior class at the high school because they get to do their financial fair. While the underclassmen all have to test, the seniors go off campus and do a morning of financial learning. And that's always a fun day. And then I know on Friday I mentioned to you guys that they have the NIC Roadshow coming to Sandpoint High School. And in fact, Mr. Nash mentioned Alex Gray, and he's done a great job with counselors and some other support. I'm probably missing people, but it's part of the CTE program. So they have that going on Friday at the high school.
Excuse me, what's the NIC Roadshow?
It is shouldn't have gotten myself into this, Tom. There's Tom. They actually are bringing, Mary, how much do you remember? They're bringing, huh? Yeah. Read the paper tomorrow. Mary's going to highlight.
And they actually highlight essentially some of the great programs that they have.
Career opportunities in some of these fields.
And I just going through, and a lot of them are really hands-on, and students are really excited and thinking. I think students thought of NIC as a more viable option after the roadshow last year.
Yeah.
And a lot of careers that they didn't really even, or things or certificates they didn't really know existed. So.
Anyway, those are just two high school things I know going on for Sandpoint High School, and we don't have any other principals here, so any other comments? Last chance. All right, meeting adjourned.